Do you want to learn how to get healthy, perform at your best, and create body composition changes that last? In this podcast, we're going to talk about all things fitness, nutrition, health, and mindset. You're going to learn how to create real results, and most importantly, how to maintain those results in the long run. I'm Johan.
I'm Kristine and Johan.
And you're listening to Talking Nutrition. What's up, guys? Just before we get into the episode, I want to apologize for the audio quality on my end. I think I might have clicked the wrong settings before I hit record to where my earphones were actually recording the audio instead of my microphone. So just so you know, my audio is not that great. I promise you it'll be back to the usual from next week on. But without further ado, let's get into the episode. I really enjoyed this one, and I'm pretty sure you will as well. Enjoy.
And go time. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 12 of Talking Nutrition. This is my first podcast as a 12-year-old. I lost a bunch of weight, and you can really start to see it in my face, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He came on Instagram this morning. Like, he had been off Instagram for a week, and he came on, and I saw a story, and I was like, whoa. Like, his face looks so lean. He also shaved his beard, so that plays into it, too.
It does play into it as well. Yeah, I did lose a bunch of weight, though. Like,
yeah.
Right now, probably 12 kilos or something total.
Wow.
Like, honestly, like, summer, it's been on and off, right? Like, basically, like, I have been gunning for a long time, but there's also been a lot of breaks in there, right? Where I had like a couple of weeks of maintenance, and then I was on tour, and it's good to be back now. You know, I just had a break from most things, like last week in Spain. Took another diet break week and took a social media break. And then like now I'm actually back to like the last push, right? So we talked about this in the past. The last couple of kilos are usually the most difficult ones. I'd like that to be gone, like, for my stomach. Reality is, it's not going yet, but you can see it in my face.
Those stubborn areas.
Always.
Yeah.
How's your nutrition training going, by the way?
Good. Pretty good. I just started. So I actually have not had a nutrition coach for like years and years. But I think it is like, I have some goals and some things I want to do. Like, I want to go into a cut, and I want to have that person that can look at things objectively. Like, clearly we know what to do as nutrition coaches, but there's still that emotional component that can get in the way. And so I just believe that even the people, and some of the best nutrition coaches in the world have coaches. Same with like business coaches, same type of thing. They all have mentors, they all have coaches, because they can look at things objectively, and like different coaches do things differently. So I just started. So far it's good. We're planning on doing a cut in either like starting the end of November, going into December. And I'm excited for that, because I also have not done a cut in a long time, like long time. I went through a lot of my gut health stuff. And within that, like, it wasn't like specifically for body composition. Of course, it was for my gut. But because gut protocols are typically pretty intense, I lost a bunch of weight during that. So I haven't really done anything calorically dropping calories since then. That was like 2 years ago. So I'm very curious to see how I respond in this one.
I mean, probably good, right? If you haven't been like actively dieting, you'll probably do great.
And recently, I actually, about, I would say 6 months ago, I started to like really track my food again. And so I reverse dieted myself, and I did it pretty quickly. Like, I wanted to see how quickly I could increase my or how high I could increase my calories without gaining like a bunch of body fat. I knew I would gain some in the process, and I did. But I got myself to a pretty good area with calories. So now I'm really curious to see, going into the deficit, where I can cut from. You know what I mean? Like, not having to go super low. That's the benefit of like sometimes increasing calories. So yeah, I'm just really curious to see how everything plays out.
Yeah. I mean, plus you spend time building muscle, which is going to help. Like,
Of course.
that's something people forget, right? Like, I got a question about this where I showed the graph where I lost like 10 kilos or something. And I got this comment. She's like, a previous client of mine, she's like, why is it going so quick for you? Like, how are you losing like a kilo a week? And I struggle, on lower calories. Like, well, like, let's not forget, I just spent like, more than a year actively like bulking and gaining weight and eating a fuck a load of food, like, and training hard. So, I did the pre-work basically.
Yeah, we put on body fat. I've put on body fat. Johan put on body fat. And that way, when you spend more time at maintenance and you spend time building muscle, you will respond way better in a deficit versus chronically trying to diet and being a little bit scared of putting on body fat. It's not the end of the world.
No. I mean, of course, there's limits to that, but I mean...
Yeah, of course.
Still, like, the more you spend, at maintenance, like not dieting, the better you will respond to a diet, but like, that's the shit like a lot of people maybe don't want to hear, or like don't feel like first getting into.
It's scary for them. It's scary for them.
Yeah. Cool. Well, being said,
that's why getting a coach can help though, because they can really educate you on this stuff. Plus they're able to look at things objectively. Yeah. So,
I mean, exactly that. Like I talked to a client today who is a coach. I told her like, sure, we know these things. And after this, we'll get into the actual episode. But like, we know these things, like, these things as a coach, but like, that's the knowing part. Like the doing part is where you get the results. And that's something we always like, everyone has their own struggles, right? Whether that's with tracking or training or you name it, like we're humans, and yeah, long story short, get a coach. no, but like, it does really help. Like, that's why I'm happy that I'm working with Cody. Like, you have a coach, and that's why literally like every mentor or program I've like been part of, like, people say, if you want to learn how to become a better coach, like, get a coach,
100%.
So yeah, 100%. Big fan, obviously.
What are we talking about today?
Flexible dieting versus meal plans.
Yes.
We're going to get into the pros and cons of meal plans, where I'm going to say, like, I've been applying more of sort of a meal plan approach, but we'll get into that recently with some people, not that many. But yeah, we'll talk about that, right? Like, where can it be a good thing? Where can it be a bad thing and not allow for flexibility? Also, why we don't provide meal plans for our clients. Then we'll get into eating clean, if it fits your macros, and then eventually what is flexible dieting, which is the approach that we both use with our clients. So yeah.
Okay, so let's talk on the case for meal plan. So like what they can provide, the pros essentially. So they can provide structure, right? They're easy to follow. They're easy to adjust. Like, you get this meal plan Monday to Friday, everything's set out for you as far as like quantity, how much, what to eat. So you're set up. You can go to the grocery store, get your food, make it. Like, it takes a lot of the mental fatigue or like decision fatigue out of the equation. Can eliminate stress. I have that written here. And mental fatigue that can come with trying to figure out what to eat for fat loss. So same type of thing. Again, you simply follow a plan, you eat this amount, you see progress. So it can take the stress out of it. Very easy to follow, but what are the cons?
Well, I think before that, like, let's talk more about like the pros. Like, it can be very beneficial, right? Like, in an ideal world, if you are actually able to adhere to it, and that's a big one. Like, if you actually manage to stick to it, it's super effective. Right. It's super easy to stick to. If you stick to the same foods, you know exactly what to eat. You go to the store, you know what to get. And your coach or calculator or whatever we want to call it, will do a little update every week, every 2 weeks, whatever, and you'll see weight loss. You'll definitely see weight loss, and if not, it's usually an adherence thing. This is also why I've been using it with a couple people. This is why I'm currently on sort of a meal plan, like at least during the weekdays. It helps a lot. It's very effective. But there are the downsides, and let's actually talk about that. So there's too little room for flexibility. Like if you actually build your own plan, if you learn about nutrition, like when you are actually in charge of your food and know how often you eat, how to put together meals in different scenarios, then you are in full control. Then you can include flexibility. If you are just following a plan that whatever coach or influencer or app or whatever gives you, there's actually no room for flexibility because you just have to follow what it says. Now, what happens when you go to a wedding? What happens if you go out for food or drinks? What happens if you meet up with family for Christmas? Like, you don't know what to do then. And that's a big stressor for people. I mean, you know that as well. In a couple of months, it's going to be Christmas. People are going to be stressed as fuck because they go from the usual work routines. They are on a roll with their nutrition. They've been doing well. Now, all of a sudden, we go away, we visit family. We have no idea what to do. I'm not making these foods, or I'm not making these meals. How do I track this? Or what do I do? You know what I mean? So that's why I think personally, we should actually teach you. Okay, I'm already getting ahead of myself. It can be boring. Not a lot of people do very well with repeating meals, whether that's repeating a few meals, whether that's repeating every meal. Not a lot of people like that. So that's one other downside. And getting back to not learning from the process, like at the end of the day, sure, you can get results, right? If you start to work with a coach. And honestly, I see that a lot in Norway. And I know that this is international anyway, but I see a lot of PTs, nothing against PTs, not at all. But they also have a nutrition coach in their bio or something. And then it says, nutrition advice or whatever, or nutritionist, or, all these different terms. But at the end of the day, what usually it's they're mostly a PT, focus on training, and then they also do nutrition, which in my mind is kind of crazy because nutrition is such a huge part and it shouldn't be like this side thing. And then most of those people, sure, they learn about nutrition in their course or whatever, but it's not always as in-depth as we go with our clients, because it ends up being, I'm a PT, I'm going to join this company, and nothing against them, not at all. Not, companies are great too. But I'm going to join this company. They have an app, and these apps, sometimes even automatically update macros, or the coach kind of goes in and updates a little bit, and that's fine. But that's not coaching. That's being a human calculator. And what happens if you move away from that program? You don't know what to do because you got the results with the plan. Now it's up to you, and you have no idea. And that I think that's an issue, right?
Mm-hmm. I think it can be jumping back to the pros for a second. Someone someone first starting out in their fitness and health journey who have no clue how to build meals or understand what to eat, it can be very helpful at the beginning, but there has to be an exit strategy, right? So yeah, there are some coaches that will give meal plans, but it's just for it's temporary until they start moving into something else, because it can help you understand how to build out meals, how much food to have in each, and et cetera, et cetera. So I do believe it can help, but there has to be an exit plan. It can't just be you're doing a meal plan to lose weight, lose fat, and then you lose fat, and then what happens then? You're just there needs to be something after that.
Yeah. That's why I think it can be useful for sure. And it's that learning, like you might learn from that for, multiple reasons, but it's kind of that question people have, right? It's like, I just need the right meal plan. Like, no, you need to learn how to put together your nutrition together yourself, right? Which is the difficult part. Let's talk about why we actually don't do meal plans with our clients.
Well, first of all, I mean, I think it depends what state you're in or where you're at. But most of us nutrition coaches technically cannot do that, and only dietitians can. But I know there are potentially some, I have no clue which states they're in. I don't even know if I can do them or not. I just don't. um, because of the reasons we just talked about. Like, I want you to learn how to build out meals. I want you to learn how to be flexible. I want you to learn how to handle situations, when you're eating out and you have a wedding or you have any sort of social event. And we really just cannot be doing that when there's a meal plan. And that's the number one reason that I don't do them, is because it doesn't set you up long term for success. And that's where I go. That's the main focus of my clients, is long term.
Yeah.
So
it's really easy for you and me both. Like, and by the way, I think in Norway, I might be allowed to do it. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. Excuse me. But same, like, even if I am allowed, I'm not going to do it. I won't. It's just not what I stand for. And that's okay. We all have different approaches.
I will say, and I think you probably do this too, where
Yeah.
I've given like example days.
Yeah.
Okay. So like
100%,
in Chronometer, or I do have like a meal plan thing that I have. It's just like I give 1 to 2 example days so they understand, but still within that, we're practicing flexible dieting, because I'm like, all right, if you want to switch out like this and this, switch it out, like no big deal. But it gives them an idea if they're brand new, they don't know how to build out meals, et cetera, or like they're having trouble hitting their protein. I will build out a day of protein for them based on their target. So in some capacity, we're doing it, but it's not like you have to stick to those exact foods.
Yeah. For sure. That's what I do as well. And like, sure, it takes a little bit more work. Like, let's be honest, and imagine too, for someone who just gets into nutrition, tries to figure it out, like, I could totally tell, like, that's sometimes overwhelming. And it's already like, oh shit, okay, now I need to, control my calories and also protein and carbs, the fats, and I need to eat more veggies. Like, oh shit, like, that's also why we have that, at least I do, like, that 6-month minimum commitment. Like, we need time to work you through this. But okay, like, back to the meal plans. I like to call it the perfect day of eating exercise, where I basically tell people, when they sign up with me, not right away, but a couple of weeks in, I say, okay, we've been controlling calories and protein, and I think it could be an idea to switch to macros, but let me actually show you how to hit that. What I'll then do is I'll show them the templates that we have, which are super simple. So if you work with, well, me and Kristine, we made the sheets together, basically. Like, we actually have something in our sheet that takes your daily macros and breaks it down into daily meals, how many you want to have per day based on training, etc. But okay, I take that and I show them in Chronometer, hey, this is how I would do it, right? These foods are not magic or anything, but this is how I would do that with your macros. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to show you how to hit your protein, and we add the carbs, fats, and the fiber, etc. We come up with a framework, and then I delete the whole thing. I don't leave it in their Chronometer. Like, I'll do it in the video. Like, I'll delete the whole thing and I'll tell them, now you do it. Yeah. And it's a great exercise. It's sometimes annoying,
yeah.
And we go back and forth because, especially in the beginning, if you're completely new, like, it's a lot to figure out. But if we actually go back and forth, now we can actually teach you how to do that yourself. And that's really where I think, if you can come up with a perfect day of eating based on some of the guidelines that we'll talk about in a sec, like, I've said this before, but like, that's probably most of the work already. Like, sure, like, we might want to adjust here and there, but that is how you do tracking macros the right way. And if you have that day to always fall back on, and this is the same with a meal plan, you could actually take that, remove a whole meal, and then all you got to do is just fill in that little gap another whole day, you know? So there's still a lot of room for flexibility. Cool. Let's talk about flexible dieting then. And I was going to get into like eating clean versus if it fits your macros, but I'll just keep that short. And by saying that a lot of people take it to the extreme, right? It's either I'm just eating clean all the time, or it's if it's fits your macros, which basically is as long as whatever you eat fits into your macros, food quality does not matter, which does seem to work. However, you might be making it more difficult for yourself.
People confuse flexible dieting with if it fits your macros.
Not the same thing.
It's not the same thing. And actually, flexible dieting doesn't even necessarily mean tracking macros either. So I'm going to go into that in a bit, but yeah, you can continue going on with what you're saying. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're good. No, that's fine. Like basically, that's what I was gonna say. Like,
yeah,
hey, like you know that classic case where it's like, hey, I can't lose weight, you know, even though I'm already just eating small meals. I have like a salad and like it's all like super clean, you know, where people sometimes end up under eating, struggling building muscle, etc. And on the other hand, it's like, oh, I'll just eat whatever I want, and it just doesn't matter, you know. So usually, and this is with anything nutrition, like usually it's somewhere in the middle, right? Food quality does not necessarily matter for fat loss. However, if you just eat trash, typically your results will be trash and adherence will be very difficult.
Your health will decline. There's a difference between like you could do if it fits your macros and you could lose body fat, but let's actually take a look at health when you're eating a bunch of highly processed foods. Because you could technically eat McDonald's every day and be in a deficit and lose body fat, but what is that really going to do to your health?
Yes.
Right?
I mean, short term, like that might be beneficial from a fat loss standpoint, but
depends
long term,
who's doing it.
Yeah, you don't want to do that, right? Mm-hmm, and I use this as an example in my seminars that I've been doing, where I actually talk about that, where you know, the Twinkie diet I talked about, Jordan Side, who did like the Big Mac challenge, and then there was a professor who ate McDonald's for 6 months. Their blood markers improved because they lived in a calorie deficit, they lost body fat, but still, like, they didn't stick to that long term. They didn't necessarily that's not like a lifestyle thing, you know?
Right.
That's why I also said, like, for fat loss specifically, not for health, but for fat loss, you can do it. But okay.
I actually really liked what Jordan Side did because there are the kind of extremes where people think you can't have any sort of processed food, right? Yeah. So there's the people who like eat a lot of processed food, whatever, highly processed food, and then there's the people who like think you need to eat like super super clean. And like Johan just said, it's kind of like this, like, I wouldn't say it's balance, but you still can have both and lose fat. But he did a calorie deficit, and he had a Big Mac every single day, but he stayed in his calorie deficit and he lost fat. And I think and he said that, like, you probably shouldn't be having a Big Mac every single day, but he was proving a point that you can absolutely have these processed foods and still lose fat and actually still be healthy in some capacity. Again, it comes down to these highly processed foods just not dominating your diet.
100%. And let's not forget that health includes your social health, right? Mm-hmm. And doing things you enjoy and going to places with friends and family and how you feel around nutrition and not restricting. Like, there's so much else that plays into that. Hey, maybe you want to have a Big Mac every now and then. Right. That's cool. That's totally fine. Yeah. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we can be healthy and flexible at the same time.
So for me, for example, I think we've talked about this already, but like, I love sweets. Okay. I love sweet food. And And so I have something basically every single day. The thing is, though, is my focus and my main priority and my majority of my food is whole sources of food. Okay. So, like, all my meals have a protein source, they have a carb source, they have a fiber source. I would say 95% of them. And then, like, after lunch, if I like, I'll make dessert. If I want like dessert, I'll have my dessert. Or if I want like some chips or whatever, like, I'll have some chips. And I just feel so good with that. And I mean, so do a lot of my clients. It's what I bring to my clients as well. It keeps things sustainable for me. I'm not going to any extreme of like too clean or going the opposite way. And it works. I mean, it works for myself. It works for pretty much all my clients.
Same.
So, yeah.
Same for me. Same for my clients. Like it definitely works.
I got that question on Instagram the other day, like how often I eat highly processed foods. I'm like, well, I personally don't have like fast food and stuff like that. That's something I just like stopped doing years ago. I also have like sensitivity. So like I don't eat that kind of food. Can you? Yeah, we just talked about it. I don't because of the sensitivities, and I'm conscious of the ingredients that I eat. You know, it's something that I pay a lot of attention to. But I mean, I'm eating processed food every single day. Majority of us are.
And that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Like and processing is not even necessarily a bad thing.
I know. And that's something that is often misunderstood.
Yeah, because like, I mean, you'll go on social media and you'll see everything being demonized, whether it's seed oils and all this shit. And sure, there's a couple things there where you know, like seed oils that we don't want to have too much all the time.
I gotta give you an example of something. So
yeah, go for it.
I made these chocolate things. Okay. I posted them on Instagram. They're fantastic. They're so good. They're like peanut butter, pretzel, banana, and they're finished in chocolate. Like the whole thing's covered.
Hell
and
yeah.
I wanted, they're so good. It's my last post. And I wanted to post this because I thought it would be a good learning lesson, but I didn't because I didn't want to like call this chick out because I know she wasn't trying to like be of harm in any way, but it's the mentality that I kind of wanted to talk about. So my chocolate I was using is Lily's chocolate. Okay. So it has like sunflower oil in it. And she comments, this isn't the exact words, but she essentially was like, these look good. I don't use Lily's because they use sunflower oil. And in like, what are they called? Quotations or whatever. She put highly inflammatory. She goes, I use Hue chocolate instead. And I'm like, see, this is the extreme, right? Like if your diet doesn't consist of all seed oils and vegetable oils, if you're having them once in a while or like even like once a day, like it's not going to be highly inflammatory. That's
complete
false.
Bullshit. Like, yeah.
That's false. And so this is like the fear mongering, right? That people are seeing on Instagram and stuff. And I will be honest, I fell into this. I fell into, oh my gosh, I cannot have seed oils. I cannot have vegetable oils, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? I'm falling into this trap. And obviously, the more we've read, like, we just know that this is untrue. But unfortunately, like, she has fallen into that. Like, I'm having this chocolate once a day. Freaking who cares? Even maybe twice a day, like this much. It is not going to be highly inflammatory to me. Right. So I just thought I really wanted to touch on that.
No, I love that you brought that up because there's so much of that, right? And I hate this guy. I don't know what he's called, but he pops up on social media or on TikTok every now and then. James Smith, he did like a few like call out videos on him, but like this dude, and he grabs like an apple and he points at like the number, and it's like these numbers mean whatever, and pesticides and like, yeah, sure, it's because someone eats a fucking apple, like that's their health issue,
Yeah.
Or same dude grabs like a bottle of Coca-Cola and it's like, this contains like aspartame, and then I mean, to his credit, like this shit, like that's how you get reach on social media, right? Like that's how you if you post that stuff, because if I get to you with a micronutrient or a little compound that you have no idea what it is, and you struggle with your health or your fitness or whatever, you must feel like, oh shit, like maybe that's a problem, right? It must be the artificial sweeteners, or it must be the highly inflammatory, tiny bit of sunflower seed oil that's in my chocolate, like.
Oh, and there was one girl, it was a really good learning lesson for her and experience. I loved it. It's kind of like the same thing. She said she was like fearing these foods because of the vegetable oil. And I wrote back to her and I was like, dosage always determines the poison in most cases. So if you're having these foods all day, highly processed foods all day, blah, 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 yeah, it's gonna be highly inflammatory. If you're having it here and there and it's in very small or just small portions, like it's not gonna do anything. So I always think about that. Dosage determines the poison in most things.
Yeah.
So I wanted to touch on that. But anyway, we kind of went on a tangent.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. I feel like this has been a great episode so far. So I'm loving it. So it's all good. But let's keep it at that. Like fitness, nutrition, it all has to be like the extreme side of the spectrum, right? Clean eating versus if it fits your macros. I swear I was going to keep this bit short, but okay. It is low carb, or sorry, it's like full blown like keto, or it's high carb. There's nothing in between. It's vegan or carnivore. It's, you name it,
Right.
It's usually somewhere in the middle. And that's maybe a good segue to just our actual flexible dieting bit.
Yeah. So
what it is,
Yeah. Alan Aragon, if you're watching this, he came out with a flexible dieting book. I'm actually holding the book up so people who are watching it can see it.
I'll link it as well.
Alan Aragon is fantastic. Very logical person. You should follow him on social media. I love his posts. Okay. So he just came out with his book, Flexible Dieting, and it's really solid. I think like if you're into this space at all, you want to learn more, this is a really, really good book to learn from. He says here, the bombshell twist, true flexible dieting accommodates degrees of rigidity. So I'm going to read his, basically definition of flexible dieting. Okay. So flexible dieting involves individualizing the degree of dietary flexibility or rigidity. It also individualizes the precision of tracking and accountability. Some folks can sustain practice of gram tracking just fine, and some even enjoy it. Some folks would rather track portions of each food group, as in traditional exchange systems used in dietitians. Other approaches include tracking just protein and calories or just protein. There's also the option to not track anything at all in the formal sense. Rather, you just maintain an awareness of your requirements for the least amount of dietary variables that still allows progress or maintenance of progress. This option involves developing your awareness of hunger and satiety cues. Flexible dieting encompasses all of these approaches, which are covered in this book. Remember that flexible dieting is not a specific diet. It's a style of dietary control. So flexible dieting can involve, people going into, like, for example, like bodybuilders, right? A lot of them do take like a flexible dieting approach. They're going in and out of phases, right? They're not just sticking to like one thing. So it's kind of like all encompassing. So it could mean it could mean tracking macros, it could not, right? It's not this just like one thing, right? So there's another thing I want to touch on here too. Wait, it's back here. So he's talking about flexible dieting versus rigid dieting. And there's some studies that he references here, and I wanted to just touch on them. So in 1999, Smith and colleagues found that flexible dieting was associated with lower body weight, an absence of overeating, and lower levels of anxiety and depression. Conversely, rigid dieting was associated with overeating and increased body weight. Also in 1999, I can't even say this, Westenhofer and colleagues formally validated the concepts of flexible and rigid restraint across a range of populations. They concluded that rigid control is associated with greater disinhibition, higher body weight, and more frequent and severe episodes of binge eating, while flexible control is associated with the opposite outcomes, including a higher probability of long-term weight loss maintenance. In 2002, Stewart and colleagues found that rigid dieting, but not flexible dieting, was associated with eating disorder symptoms, body image disturbance, and higher BMI. So it's in your hands. What would you rather do?
Yeah. And this is where tailoring the whole process to you is important, right? And you can't do that with a traditional meal plan. I'll add that, right? A traditional meal plan. You can't do that with a calculator or a program. And I'm sure there's probably stuff that's, apps and stuff that are getting better and better. But working with a human, with a coach who can actually help, you figure out what flexible dieting means to you, I think that's the way to do it, personally. Hey, I'm biased because it's the way I do it. It's the way you do it. But we see results with it. So
yeah,
must be some truth in there somewhere, right?
Right.
Cool. I love this episode, actually.
Yeah, it was a great one.
Touched on a lot of good stuff. And to kind of recap, we talked about the pros and cons of meal plans, why we don't do them, but how you can actually still learn from them if you build it yourself. We touched on what flexible dieting is, and we kind of went on a side tangent about social media and the extremes of where people kind of demonize this one thing, like a compound or a food group. Context matters. It's a dose that makes a poison. Lastly, if you'd like, I do have a free meal plan article on my website, which I'll link, where I give you 2 examples, one for fat loss, one for muscle gain, for both male and female, just for inspiration. Then I also have another article that basically teaches you how to calculate your macros, break them down into individual meals, so you can build your own macro meal plan. So I'll link those down below. We'll link the book as well, because I think Aragon is a great resource. There is, we're not affiliated or anything. We don't get anything from that book link. We just love it as a resource. So that being said, what's up?
There's Eric's daughter colored me this little thing.
Oh yeah,
see it in the background.
Oh no, I see it. Sorry, yeah.
People are probably like, "What is that?"
Shit, I didn't even see that. I minimized the screen so I have my notes up here. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay. Awesome.
For anyone watching, there's a little cat in the background that's scribbled. They're probably like, "Why is that up there?"
People always might be wondering as well why there's a cloudberry grenade on the wall here, but to give you the backstory of that one, a friend of mine drew that, and cloudberries are these berries that only grow in the Arctic, which is where I live, and he turned it into a grenade. But basically,
that's pretty sweet.
It's pretty cool. He 10 years ago when I did my first tour with the band I play with, he was playing bass and he was drawing that, so he just came out with this one. I was like, oh shit, I gotta get that. It's just cool.
Yeah, that's sweet.
And yeah, great episode. we'll talk soon again next week, next Monday.
Thanks for listening, guys.
See you next time.
Thank you for listening. If you want to help us grow the show, please make sure to leave us a 5-star rating or share this episode on your Instagram stories. Now, if at any point you feel like you need more help, you can always reach out to Kristine or myself directly via any of the links in our show notes, because we're here to help. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.